listening to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
This is Pharmacy Crossroads with your host, community pharmacy business veteran, the road trip guy, Bruce Nealand. Community pharmacy is at a crossroads. Pharmacy owners across the country are evolving their pharmacy businesses and making a bigger impact on their communities. Bruce talks with the most innovative community pharmacy owners, pharmacy industry experts, and people who are passionate about the business of pharmacy and its impact on community healthcare. Pharmacy Crossroads is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. And now, here's our host, Bruce Nealand.
Well, hello again, ladies and gentlemen, friends and neighbors. This is Bruce Nealand with another episode of Pharmacy Crossroads, and it just keeps getting better. I'm telling you, today I've got two guests who I've admired from afar for years. They are industry experts, and we're going to be talking today about things you need to know when and if you're going to buy or sell your pharmacy. So ownership transfer is a big topic in the industry today. I have on the line with me today Tim Clark and Owen Bondurant of Independent RX Consulting. And these guys have been in the business for, 12 years, 10 years? Tim, how long have you guys been doing this?
We've been in the consulting business for, I guess, close to 15 years. However, we've been in the pharmacy business. I'm a third generation pharmacist, so we've been doing pharmacy since 1939.
I bet you could tell us what AWP is, right? So, that's an acronym. I wonder whether some of the new pharmacies even have any clue what that means. So anyhow, that was Tim who was just speaking, and he's joined by his partner, Owen. Let's go back, Tim. You've been in the business for your third generation. Who are you? Tell us just a little bit about who you are and what your company does.
Thanks, Bruce. My name is Tim Clark. I'm a third generation pharmacist and one of the co-founders of Independent RX Consulting. And we basically have been around, owning pharmacies, being, a pharmacist. I've been in the business since I was a kid, and so is Owen. Owen and I actually both used to work for his dad, who worked for my dad. So we've got a long-term relationship. We've kind of seen everything from a typewriter to a computer system to a MetaMed form to, now we can give vaccinations, and, we're becoming a lot more clinical in our practice.
Well, and thank you. So, Owen, who the heck are you?
So I'm Owen Bondurant. I guess I'm second generation. My dad was Tim's partner before this, and as he said, worked for Tim's dad. But I'm also a partner in Independent RX. Tim and I own two pharmacies now: a long-term care, a compounding, and a retail pharmacy. But I think here we're wanting to talk about Independent RX and how we help people. Primarily, I mean, we started out doing start buy and would help people start and buy pharmacies. And that kind of translated into those people wanted us to do accounting. So we do accounting for pharmacies as well. And then we would work with people for a while. And then eventually every person has to sell their pharmacy. And so we started helping people sell pharmacies. So we kind of worked through the life cycle of ownership.
Well, and that's cool, and it gives you that perspective, and you're living it. You're not just talking about it. I talk a lot, but I don't do much. I am going to reminisce. I started my career as a medicine shop operations manager back in the 70s, and opened about 70 pharmacies. It was exciting to get involved. A guy getting started a pharmacy, the excitement, the razzmatazz, and all that. We made him sign 20-year agreements. And back then, I couldn't imagine a guy actually living through a 20-year contract. And that's 45 years ago now. So I've seen a number of people, wind through that whole medicine shop contract. Everybody gets to the point where we're going to focus today is when you open a pharmacy, part of the plan is one of these days you're going to sell that sucker. And so let's talk a little bit about how things have changed, first of all, in the marketplace. So we're talking here latter part of 2023, just at the beginning of what everybody's talking about, the DIR apocalypse. What is the landscape right now for people trying to sell a pharmacy?
Right now, there's opportunity with the change in the DIR structure. I think we're finding, just like we do in any moment of time, that change is going to happen. And this is going to be, while maybe it seems like a bad thing, I see it as a good thing. And independents are typically more versed to be able to go through the change and then see that we're going to have a future. I feel like as we go through this change, it's going to be the same thing as like how you help those 70 people become pharmacy owners. Right now, as a pharmacist, you now have an opportunity to still own a store. You can still get in network, and you can still make a good living.
And I see a whole lot of people doing that. Owen, you got any comment on the changes in the marketplace for buying or selling pharmacies?
Well, I think over the last 5 to 10 years, I mean, it used to be that, if you went to sell to a chain, they would make probably 95% of the time, they would make an offer that was really good. And they basically wanted to buy everything. Now they don't want to buy everything. Sometimes their offers are ridiculous, and other times they're not. But what that's done is, I think it's opened up a lot more independent and buyers, either individuals or multi-store owners, right?
Yeah.
And so you have more chances to keep your legacy going and still get a good offer. In addition to that, we're seeing hospitals and kind of private equity groups get into this. And so that's a whole nother market that is really started to drive valuations and different opportunities for you to do something different in the sale of your business.
Well, go ahead, Tim.
Groups that are trying to get into pharmacy. We've had meetings with, for instance, people like DoorDash, who have gotten to the delivery business, and then they see us as independents and what we're doing, and they look at us as an opportunity for growth of the products and the services that they want to sell, right? So for us, I think there's this unique opportunity that it used to just be that the chain was your strategic buyer. Now your strategic buyer, like Owen said, you've got hospital systems, you got MCOs, you've got other strategic physician groups and things that think that they can provide value by controlling where the prescriptions get filled. And it's not just making sure that they get the money or monetize filling the prescription. They want to control the patient. And usually it's in the best interest of them, to do a good job, with the counseling, the therapy, making sure that they're using cost-effective drugs. And, so there's like different opportunities that have kind of spun out from where we were. It used to be, it was us and a chain competing against each other. But now there's so many people in this market segment.
I've just had my first aha moment on this conversation. I came into thinking your options were independent or a chain. The fact that hospitals and venture capitalists and physician groups are also on the landscape. That says two things to me. That says, like you said to begin with, there's still opportunity. But I think it really means that the guy who wants to do this by himself needs to rethink that, because he's just not going to have access to those alternative buyers that you've just mentioned. Any comment on that?
Well, while they might not think that they have access to those, I mean, there's, again, people who can help you find like us, who can help you find a strategic buyer. And when you're going to put yourself in a situation that you're looking at exiting, one of the things we suggest is you kind of talk about it. You have a not a closed door. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to sell to this person. It's kind of my philosophy that I want to talk to them about all the different things that can happen. Now, it could be as simple as that you're going to sell it to, let's say, your staff pharmacist or someone who's coming out of school or the guy down the street. I mean, those can be very logical exit strategies for you. Or it could be back to where we were talking earlier that it might make sense that you got a crappy chain down the street that needs your 1,000 scripts a week to make their store financially viable. There's so many different ways to look at it. What I like to do is just say we kind of whiteboard it, talk about it, and then let you as the guy who or the person who's going to sell their business kind of know that it's not just one way it's going to happen, so I can prepare you for the opportunities. And then also we want to talk to you about like part of the discussion we want to have with you is let you also think. And you might have an idea that you never even thought of, but if I could ask you the right question, I can get you to come up with, maybe it is that physician group down the street who's got a staff pharmacist on hand. Some of the practices that we've talked with have pharmacists involved into the clinical outcomes, and it might make sense for them to fill some of the prescriptions.
I am so glad we're talking about this, because you've just a whole layer has come off my eyes. So, one of the things that I had simplified in the idea is this notion of a matrix, is that you lay things out and you say, okay, here's the possible buyers, which is now expanded by 5 or 6 possible buyers, and then here's the moving parts. The market conditions, the number of scripts that you're filling, the profitability of the pharmacy, the kinds of enhanced care services, for lack of a better term, that you're providing. All those things on the other side of the spreadsheet or the matrix. What are some of the key things that you think pharmacists leave off that list when they're trying to figure out, how am I going to get ready to sell my pharmacy? I mean, how far ahead of time do they need to think about this? And, what are some of these moving parts that they need to ponder?
Bruce, I think what you're getting to is, like anything else, so most sellers have been doing this for a while, right? Maybe it's 10 years, maybe it's 20, maybe like you said, it's 40.
Right.
That is that. And what happens is when you first started your business or first bought your business, you got yourself educated and you planned. But eventually you get tired, okay? And you stop doing as much education and as much planning. So, but selling is typically something no one's ever done. And so you need to get educated on how to sell, and you need to make a plan to sell it. Right. And so the reason things get left out is because you haven't planned. And I think the biggest thing that I leaving out is almost the wrong thing, Bruce. I think they're just not prepared. So, they don't know, they don't have all their tax returns. They don't understand within their financials what were their personal expenses, right, that are going to go away upon the new buyer buying it, right?
Explain that a little bit. What are we talking about?
Well, let's say you have a car that is on the books, right, and you drive it personally. Well, when someone else buys it, they're not going to pay for your car, right? That car is now going to be yours, and that comes off the expenses,
okay.
Right? Or maybe
you own the building.
Yeah.
If you own the building where your pharmacy is, that's part of your transaction, and you could be, we see people underpaying themselves or overpaying themselves, when it comes to that. But it is a part of what they've got as their cash flow. It's a part of, their business model, and it's different than other businesses. Most businesses that you're looking at acquiring don't even have any real estate attached to it. And then if you talk about that real estate thing, I don't know. I could go on a tangent here, Bruce. I'll go back to where you were, though. The big thing in terms of, that owner, us, we just have to run our business really well every day, because you don't know when you're going to need to sell it or want to sell it. I mean, it used to be that we had this thing, oh, I'm going to retire when I'm 65 or whatever that thing is. Right now, you might want to retire because your kids moved out to Colorado, or you might want to sell your business to move to be closer to family, or, a parent, or, who knows, maybe you had a life event, a divorce or something, that something is going to happen and change. So my whole thing is like trying to get people prepared even now, because tomorrow is going to come. You're not going to, this business will not go on forever. I mean, you may not have a family member to sell it to, and that may not even be the best for your family. But you need to have the simple things of running your business. You need to do your taxes. You need to have clean P&Ls. You need to have, your perpetual inventory in your pharmacy system. You need to have some growth. You need to not lose money. You need not to overpay people. And our ability, and I think as a consultant, is to tell you all those things honestly without the fear of upsetting somebody. I'm not really trying to sell you something. I'm trying to give you advice. And my advice may not be what Owen takes or you take, Bruce. It may be like you mentioned a little bit earlier. Okay, you now have an aha moment. Oh, I could sell to other people other than just another independent. So my job and Owen's job is to spark conversation so that you can figure out what's good for you, so that you're prepared and you're not just sitting there holding the bag of a pharmacy.
Well, let's talk about emotion for just a minute. So it's a personal thing for me. We just sold our house in Arizona and moved to Utah. In fact, I'm 2 weeks in the new house. And I remember sitting down with the realtor 4 months ago and, looking at all the comps and all that kind of stuff. And, the facts that he laid out offended my wife. This was her house. She loved it. She knew that it was neat. And he kept trying to tell her, well, it's not worth what you think it's worth, even though it's worth that. You're not going to get anybody else to pay for it. So you hit on the emotion piece there a minute ago. I mean, talk a little bit about how complicated that is. You've got husbands and wives and all those kinds of people with all different opinions. How delicate is that?
Well, I guess the first thing I'd say is to recognize that we have emotions makes it easier. If I know, and again, I know that you're going to be sensitive, let's say, to selling your business, like selling a house. I mean, it's not just a black and white thing. We're talking, a very deep, emotional, three-dimensional kind of feeling thing that we walk in here every day and we like it, we love it, even though we may complain about it. It's part of us. Yeah. So the thing that we try to do is we really want to talk to you about who you are emotionally, so that I can help you. I mean, our job, and I think as you know, as you go around and you're talking to people, we're trying to inspire them to make good decisions, but also recognize that emotionally they like their business. And, sometimes the nice thing about, let's say, a tax return or a P&L, it is a black and white thing. If you're not making any money, I can explain to you, you're just not making any money. How would someone pay for it? I can't give you a great value if we're not making money, right? That seems logical, but then you can say, well, I've got this and I've done that. No one buys on your hopes. They buy on their hopes.
Well, and then bring into that, I mean, you've got a double problem, because you've got the buyer who's trying to get the best deal he can. And he doesn't have the emotion attached to it, and he's trying to figure out how to drive the price down. And so you're walking a fine line there.
See, and I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, I think everybody thinks that the buyer is trying to, we'll say, screw the seller. That is not really true. I mean, he's just trying to. I mean, people that we've dealt with are really just trying to get a fair deal, and the hard part is to get a simple answer back from the seller. So really, that's why we spend a lot of time just up front getting you prepared for those answers. So when they ask, we can answer. But usually that guy who's buying, he's not trying to go buy it cheap. He's trying to go buy it because he's got an idea, just like you did, that oh, I think if I go do this and then I add compounding your business, oh, I can score. Or gosh, if I can add, let's say, a generic pharmacy to your business, I can score. Or I can go add, some sort of strip packaging that I can score. They're usually like they've got in their head an idea, because I mean, really, we started off just working with buyers. Yeah. And they're not those people that are really trying to get a bad deal. They're just trying to get a fair deal.
And I will tell you, Bruce, they are emotional, because when they find something that they want, it's just like when you and your wife are looking for a house. I don't know about you, but like when my wife saw the house she wanted, it was like, that's the one.
Yeah.
Right. And now the emotions start kicking in. So both parties, that's actually one of the tough things, is both parties are emotional for good reason. I mean, for the buyer, it's their dream. And for the seller, it's their legacy. Right. I mean, I can tell you in the last year, I've been out to dinner or lunch with Tim and my dad, and we've had customers from sales 10 years ago who were like, oh, we miss you guys. I mean, that's tough when you have a customer come up to you 10 years later and they're like sad that your business is gone. Right. And so like, and they're going to come up and like, even if you sell it to your PIC, you will have people come up to you and go, oh, it's just not the same. But that's a compliment. And so like, it is an emotional thing. And, in people like us, our jobs are to try to remove those emotions and make logical, good decisions. Because emotions will cause bad decisions.
People won't be able to see this, but I love the smile on your face as you're talking about that, Owen. You obviously enjoy what you're doing. I got to change the topic a little bit, and we're definitely trying to be scholarly here. We don't want to be bragging on independent RX consulting too much, and you've done that well. Help me understand just a little bit about why anybody who wants to sell a pharmacy would be wise to use an outside individual to help in that process.
Well, Bruce, I mean, like, there's lots of stuff. Let's go back to the house scenario. We think that we can go say that fee from a broker to sell my house because I got a good house. I got a good pharmacy. Why do I need, you to help me go do this? The only reason you need help is because you've never sold a house before. You've never sold a pharmacy before. Or even if you did, if you haven't sold it in the last, let's say, year, it's different. Everything changes. I mean, to go through the transaction, you should get someone who's been through a transaction to help you go through this transaction so that you don't screw it up. I mean, because we go back to emotions can screw up a transaction too, because they're not giving good counsel. And typically what I would tell you, whether you're selling a house, a pharmacy, or whatever, if you've never done that before, you should get somebody to help you. Or you should have people on your team to help you. I'm lucky that I've got, I've owned like 30 stores, and I've had a central office, a CPA on staff, operations manager. I've had, some depth to just more than Tim Clark, right? So I've had people who have been able to give me advice and tell me yes and no, and give me the truth instead of what I want to hear. Yeah. And I would say, if you're going to look at getting out of your business or even thinking about it, talking to someone who all they want to do is to see you be okay through that transaction. They're not your best friend. They're not your brother. They just want you to have a good transaction. And if they have a bad transaction with you, you're going to go tell everybody that they did a bad job. So your advantage to have somebody help you is that they've been through a transaction, so they're supposed to help you, guide you through that.
I saw something on your website earlier where you were talking about benchmarking when you're talking about financial analysis, and that notion seems to apply here. If I'm selling one pharmacy, even if I've sold one before, I really don't have a good idea what else is going on in the marketplace. I just don't have the the breadth of experience or whatever. And so my advice based on this conversation and other experiences, if you're ready to sell your pharmacy, find somebody who's done it a few times before, who's currently doing it. And this is a little bit sensitive, but we need to talk about the fact that the wholesalers have people who are very good at doing this, and they do it for free. So, I mean, a couple minutes on how and why somebody should.
Well, again, Bruce, let's look at what the wholesalers do. They do a good job of saying that Bob would like to exit. And then they tell as many people they can that Bob's going to exit. They talk to Bob about his store or Sally about their store. All that is great and fine. But what they don't do is walk you through the transaction. They can get you to the transaction, which basically means I can get those two to date, but I can't consummate a marriage license.
Okay. Explain that.
So there's so many details when it comes to the transaction that you have to give advice through experience. Like what happens with the DEA, the state pharmacy license, what I do with this lease, what's a typical non-compete, how do I talk to my attorney about this? We're not attorneys, but someone has to be able to talk to an attorney who's actually been through a transaction. And then the bigger thing is like knowing really what happens during that transition to the next thing. I mean, your wholesaler does a good job at A, but a typical broker is a lot more deep in terms of what they're doing for that client.
I think you'd be shocked how often the brokers and the wholesalers are working together.
Yeah.
I think, Bruce, this comes back to what we were saying earlier. Like, you need to get help from people. Like, the wholesalers do know stuff and they have insight into a lot of transactions, so they can give you information. However, if you come and say, should I do this deal or this deal? Which one makes the most financial sense to me with wind down costs? That's not the business they're in, right? So like you may need a CPA or like a broker who has a CPA. So these people are all working in conjunction and they're all trying to, like Tim said, have you have a successful transaction. And so does that make any sense? Like these parties a lot of, I mean, heck, we work with other brokers all the time. Right. I mean, so like this is a small industry where everyone knows each other and they're all trying to help and they all fit into their pieces, but you need help to do this. And the reason all these people exist is because it's hard. Like this is not a simple thing. There is, there's the whole transaction piece, but there's calculating your wind down and your take home. There's licensing, there's insurance contracts, there's powers of attorney, there's purchase agreement, there's indemnification, there's, real estate, there's leases. I mean, like this is a healthcare transaction. This isn't selling the pizza joint down the street that does all cash and, has to get a local county license. Like it isn't that simple.
And
go ahead, Tim.
Bruce, the nice thing again is that we work with the wholesalers because they do provide an opportunity. I mean, the great thing for them is, they do want your business to continue. I mean, they have a vested interest because we go to our wholesaler and like it or not, I mean, they make a lot of money off the independent segment, right? So they want that business to continue. So they are decent at finding other people who are looking at growing their business and, multiple store owners. That's definitely a segment that I would tell anybody who wants to look at selling their business, we should go look at. However, but there's all these other things that can happen. Let's say, again, maybe it is selling it to a chain, maybe it's a hospital, maybe it's a doctor group or somebody else that, they're not going to have access to those people because they really just want it to go from Tim to Owen. Like, which is fine, but really, as I look at it, I mean, do you want to put your I guess your business for sale in the newspaper, or do you want to put it on the internet?
Yeah.
You go to your wholesaler, it's like putting it in a newspaper. You go to, a broker, and maybe we go to the World Wide Web. We're trying to find someone who's a good fit for you.
So real quick change, and then we do need to wrap up. Chains are closing pharmacies now rather than opening them. Does that have a meaningful effect on what a pharmacist can expect to get for his pharmacy?
Almost certainly it can. I mean, it used to be that they were trying to get market share, even if it didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Now they're in the same boat as you and I, that they're, now with the advents of, again, mail order, COVID, and all the things that have happened, that now people are okay with getting their prescriptions, at their house instead of coming into my pharmacy. They have that same problem. Look at how many things you buy off of Amazon that you don't go into your local,
Right.
corner store or grocery store or Walmart, Target, because it's just easier. I get my cat litter that way.
And I think there's the number one thing it does is going back to what we said originally, operating your store as if you're going to sell tomorrow. Get your financials good. Know your business, what makes money, what does not make money. We see people all the time, Bruce, that'll be like, well, the compounding is only 1,000 scripts. And then I do the calculation, it's $100,000 in gross profit.
Right.
That's $300,000 in valuation. Like that is an extremely important piece of your business. So like knowing what you have and having it prepared, because when the chains just wanted your scripts, so they didn't care if you made money. Well, now guess what? If you want all the buyers to be in the pot, you better have things together and understand them. So take just a little bit of time and understand your business. Plus, you might learn something that will allow you to grow your business.
And the chains are going to look, sorry, Bruce, the chains are going to look at the same things we do when we help somebody buy a store. I mean, they're going to look at what is your mix of business, what is the third parties, what's the reimbursements, the brands, what are the specialty products. Everybody's going to be looking at the same thing. And now even the chains are going to look at it the same way, because they don't want to go add a bunch of your business that's bad to their business. They're looking for good business, which again, you might not know your business well enough to know if you got anything good, but I mean, that's really what they're buying.
Well, I'm gonna kind of put a ribbon around this by saying, first of all, I'm a whole lot smarter now than I was before, and I'm gonna plug you by saying what it is that you're doing that impresses me is you've got a whole other cadre of services with your accounting and your coaching and those kinds of things that you need to run your pharmacy as best you can so that you can sell it someday. But if somebody's not planning on selling it for 10 or 12 years, they can still come to Independent RX Consulting and get some advice based on the experience of yourself and your whole team of people. And the web page here is independentrxconsulting.com. So Tim, you first. You got a minute to say a closing comment. Owen, you probably have 30 seconds. So wrap up real quick.
I'll just say thanks, Bruce, for what you do with pharmacy. It's so awesome. All the stores that you've been into and your lifetime, and you're a positive influence, and you make us feel better. We're not out there alone. And, independent pharmacy is going to still be here in the next, 50, 70 years. I mean, it just is, you got professionals that can go operate a business and make a decent living and have some of all those benefits that, we always hoped for back when, my grandpa was doing it, and, all those 70 medicine shops that you started.
Yeah.
Pharmacy is going to continue to change, and the opportunity is endless. Thank you for what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Bruce. And I mean, I guess I would just tell people, don't be afraid to talk about selling. I think it's a thing in the industry. No one wants to say they're going to sell. They've built these businesses. Like, you don't have to tell your whole staff, but it's okay to plan and to have those conversations with people who know what they're doing.
Well, and it's never a secret. The plan has always been open, have success, enjoy a good life, and sell. It's
Yeah,
it's just part of the cycle.
Yeah, you know what's funny about that, Bruce? No one has any problem when a software company starts up and sells.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, well, he's the greatest guy on earth.
Yeah.
But I mean, if a pharmacy, builds up their businesses and sell, it's like he's the devil. No, it's not. No one thinks that. They're quite happy with you, and that's okay. That's part of the reason that you did it.
There's very few people or businesses or employees that'll be really, really mad at you to do what you need to do for yourself. And if they're not happy that you're doing good for yourself, they're really not that good of friends anyway.
Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, friends and neighbors, this is Tim Clark and Owen Bondurant with Independent RX Consulting. Their webpage has a whole plethora of tools and services that they offer. I'm proud to know them, and I'm proud to be able to serve the industry that they serve. So with that, we're signing off for Pharmacy Crossroads, hoping that something we shared here today will help you do more and be better. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Pharmacy Crossroads. If you're interested in talking with Bruce, please contact the show. Visit pharmacycrossroads.com. We look forward to hearing from you.